Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Eurojank Theatre. In this episode, we'll be Yeah, I gotta lose that. That's not working. Yes, that's correct. Today we will be talking about a little RPG called Elex by a studio called Piranha Bytes. That is 100% through and through Eurojank. Eurojank, a video game developed by a European studio that indeed includes a fair amount of jank, for better or worse. Jank may consist of, but is not limited to, poor controls, bad audio, bad acting, feeling like a mid-2000s RPG despite releasing literally a decade after the mid-2000s, bad user interface, or lackluster graphics. Bonus points if they mildly resemble a much better game that you've played from somewhere else. Now, my experience with Elex is probably a bit different than the typical Elex fans' experience because I never played Risen, and I never played Gothic. I've never played a Piranha Bytes game before. I had zero expectations going into this game. Piranha Bytes has a very specific fan base that wants what is essentially the same game over and over with a slightly different setting and maybe slightly better gameplay and graphics with each iteration. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, Piranha Byte fans, they stay well-fed. But what happens when a newcomer comes along and plays Elex with zero nostalgia for the studio's other games? This is a slippery slope and there's a lot of moving parts, so let's break down this Eurojank. The story is not wholly unique and does take some time to get going. You see, in Elex, humanity exists on a planet called Magalan. It's just like Earth, but it has a silly name. A meteor crashes into the planet and it hurts real bad, but it brings us a little gift in the form of
Elex.
It just brings millions of copies of the game to the planet for everyone to, well, everyone's dead, but they can play in the afterlife. You see, Elex in the game is like space crack mixed with space gasoline mixed with space uranium, if I could describe it. As with any apocalypse, people divide into factions, and somehow with all the people on the planet, they only manage to divide into like 4. You've got the Berserkers who basically take all of this as an excuse to LARP Skyrim, but like forever. Like they're not LARP, they just live like they're in Skyrim. They shun technology, yes, just like the Weird Al song. They also managed to take Elex and turn it into mana, which they then use to cast actual real-life spell. Like they just make magic out of Elex. They turn into magical goo. It's probably in the lore somewhere as to how they do that, but I missed it, and I don't care. And when I say they shun technology, if you're around one of these guys and you so much as forget to put your phone on silent around them and it goes off, they will shit in your open mouth. You got the Outlaws, who are the token Mad Max characters of the apocalypse. They basically use Elex to create drugs. They make stims and all different kinds of stuff that you'd see in games like Fallout to essentially make them unpredictable in a fight. They also use a lot of explosives, flamethrowers, things that make your skin go away, basically. That's their specialty. There are the clerics who fully embrace technology and use Elex to power their armor, their weapons, gigantic mechs. It's pretty cool, actually. They have cool energy swords and plasma rifles and stuff, so if you're a sucker for sci-fi, they are the faction for you. The last major faction are the Albs, and yes, that is literally the worst name ever, but hey, I didn't write it. They fully embrace Elex, and by that I mean they actually consume it to the point where it makes them super strong, but it drains them of all their emotions, and it makes their skin pasty and pale. They answer to a force known as the Hybrid. Although they've existed longer than the Hybrid just kind of shows up one day, and all of the elves decide, yeah, we'll listen to you. You play as Jax, an Alb commander who is betrayed by the other Albs and left for dead at the beginning of the game, coincidentally leaving you with no armor, no weapons, and no fun to be found. You wake up to find all of your stuff stolen, and yeah, you venture out to find out what the hell happened, why you were betrayed, join a faction, confront the hybrid, and do a whole lot of RPG stuff along the way. I'm gonna spoil the ending for those of you that just want to know and don't care to play the game before Elex 2 comes out, which I think is in just about a month or so. So here's your time code if you want to skip ahead of the ending spoilers. Give you a second here. 4, 3, 2, 1. Elex and the comet that it was on was not an accident. It was sent to Magellan on purpose. Some alien species sent it there to prepare the planet before they show up at some point. The hybrid has known about this and has been trying to prepare the planet for their arrival through, evil, shitty dictator means, not like anything that would actually make sense to prepare the planet. It's very, very similar to the plot of Mass Effect. Very similar. A big evil force is coming, and somebody has got to prepare the galaxy / Magellan. And the different endings to the game depend on how cold you have made yourself through quests and interactions. You see, as an ex-alb, you're learning to emote and feel things because the albs, when they're consuming Elex, they don't feel anything, they have no emotions. So instead of having like good karma or bad karma or something like that, the game relies on how cold you are, how emotionless and unfeeling you are. So essentially, the more you go without Elex, and the more you just, act like a person, the less cold you are. Speaking of the cold system, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, the gameplay of Elex is really the dictionary definition of mixed bag. The questing in the game is actually pretty fun, and the huge, massive amounts of dialogue that you have with every single person that you can talk to is, well, it's pretty neat. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about quests. Some quests are just talking to people and convincing them of something, or delivering a thing, fetch quests or whatever. But there's so many different things you can do. It's very similar to Fallout, but I feel as though there's even more options for how you can end missions than, your typical Fallout game. And just like Fallout, you can really change and influence the main story, even though at the end, it boils down to a few different choices that you make. It's very interesting how many different branching paths every character's story has that you interact with. Now, to coincide with the dialogue system that's really just a lot of fun, we have a combat system that is wet, sloppy ass. Jax controls like straight up shit. He's sluggish, he doesn't always feel like he's doing what you tell him to do, and really, in an RPG made by at least a AA studio in 2017, it's a big ol' red flag for me. I see people complain a lot in fighting games about hitboxes and hit registration, stuff like that. Dude, if you want to talk about hitboxes that don't make any sense, this game is for you. Sometimes hitboxes feel like they're the size of a football field, and other times they feel like they don't exist. Particularly with the melee weapons, which I would consider to be the main form of combat in the game, they try to do like a light, heavy, and finishing attack system where you like build up a combo meter and then you can do a finishing move that's a little bit stronger than a heavy attack. Dude, the wind-up frames for these attacks, you could file your taxes in the time it takes for Jax to swing his weapon.
Oh my god.
The gunplay really does leave something to be desired, although there are some firearms you can get, such as the flamethrower, that make every other weapon in the game basically useless, which is kind of disappointing. And the spells are okay too, but some of them, particularly the single-use ones that you get from the albs, Man, they're so boring and so lame. Traversal is pretty whatever. Running around is like okay. Jack's, again, he feels pretty sloppy. Kind of feels like he's running around on ice all the time. And they somehow managed to make the least fun jetpack ever in any game. This game has the worst jetpack, without a doubt. It has zero momentum, so you could be sprinting and, jump off a ledge and activate your jetpack. The jetpack does not carry your momentum from you sprinting and jumping. So as soon as you hit the jetpack button, you kind of slam on the brakes in midair and you just kind of go up. Like, the jetpack does not give you a lot of forward momentum when you're using it. You just kind of go up, and you can sort of move forward and backward a little bit. Adding to that, you don't get to just freely teleport to towns that you've visited. You have to specifically find teleporters to fast travel to. So if you go to a town or some kind of point of interest on the map, but you don't find the teleporter that's for it, there might not even be one. If you don't find it, you can't fast travel back there, even though you've been there, because you didn't walk up to the teleporter or you didn't find it or whatever. And sometimes they're not in like easy to spot places. They don't make them obvious. There's no beam of light or something above them to say like, hey, teleporter here, come grab it. And of course, you could just Google the locations, but like, I'm sure that's not how they made their game. Oh, well, people will just Google where they are. Just have them do that. I don't think that was part of their game design philosophy. Maybe it was. I don't know. The game world is fairly pretty from some angles, but frankly, it's nothing I haven't seen in other games before. And I'm not going to compare it to Breath of the Wild because I'm 1000% sure that Elex and Piranha Bytes did not have the same budget or time as Nintendo and Breath of the Wild. There's no way that those budgets match up. So even though they came out in the same year, I'm not going to compare them. I've seen a lot of people praise the world and how it's handcrafted and it feels very curated and it doesn't feel procedurally generated. And I really have to say, I don't know what they're talking about because I can't tell you how many times surfaces just didn't match up with each other, or, traversing up a mountain was, some Skyrim horse BS where I just kind of hump the side of a mountain until I reach the top, in some way I wasn't supposed to do it. Like, the world does not feel that special. Sorry, that's just my opinion, but I really don't get some of the praise that the game world gets. The skill progression is kind of interesting. So you get attribute points every time you level up. You got 6 attributes: strength, dexterity, charisma, whatever, that stuff. You know what I'm talking about. And you get 10 attribute points, and you can put them into whatever you want. Up to certain points, though, because past a certain point, it takes 2 points to level up a stat. And then after that, it takes 5 points to level up a stat. So when you level up, if you've got your strength up really high, you might only be able to put 2 points into it, which I take as the game saying that you should kind of even out all your traits, be a jack of all trades and try everything. It doesn't feel like, say, Fallout, where, it's fun to just dump 10 points into strength and run around the wasteland as an all-powerful barbarian who can be stopped by nothing. You've also got skills. You get 1 skill point every time you level up, but the skills require certain amounts of points to be put into the corresponding attributes. So to get this skill, you might need 35 strength and 25 dexterity. But in order to increase that skill, you have to go to a skill tutor, and not just any skill tutor, it has to be a specific skill tutor that can give you those specific kinds of skills. And some of them are only unlocked through factions. Forgive me if this sounds complicated. I think it's slightly overcomplicated. It also costs money to unlock certain skills. Like, even though you got the skill point and the attribute points, sometimes you need money too. And in the early part of the game, gotta tell ya, I was not packing a loaded wallet most of the time. If I ever make a game that makes unlocking skills this unfun, don't play it. Really, playing this game just constantly reminded me of how badly I wanted to play an Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, literally the whole time. Don't get me wrong, these games have their audience who love every morsel of this experience, and maybe you out there watching this, maybe you're one of them. Maybe you haven't even played it and you're one of them, and you've got to play it to find out. I don't know. Just talk about my opinions and my experiences. If you look at the review scores that the game got when it released, you can kind of see this trend. If you look on Steam, it's got mostly positive reviews from people that are fans of the series. A lot of the bigger reviews reference Risen and Gothic and how much they like those games and how this is an improvement on those games and how they like New World, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at some of the outlets that reviewed the game, a lot of them are, somewhere between like a 5.5 to a 6.5 out of 10, referencing a lot of the stuff I just said. Pretty world, fun dialogue, but oh man, combat stinks, and traversal, This is not a game for everyone, but those that like it will love it. I have to mention the difficulty, which is a huge, huge hurdle for this game. For the first, 15 to 20 levels, almost every single monster can absolutely clap you in 1 to 2 hits. There are some really, really weak enemies that take a little bit more than that, but most of them, outside of the very starting area, good luck. Good luck running away, because that's all you'll be able to do. There's no real way to know how strong a monster is either without letting it hit you or just looking at it and guessing, yeah, he looks kind of strong. There's no levels or anything for them, just a name and a really ugly face. You might get to, level 8 or something, maybe you just picked up a new weapon and you look at one of these velociraptor fellows and you say, yeah, I can take that guy, and then you get backhanded into the Shadow Realm. A big thing that matters in terms of the difficulty is your equipment. No matter what difficulty you set this game on, by the way, don't think you can just put it on easy and cruise through the game. It ain't like that. You have to join a faction in order to get the good equipment in the game. Everything else, just straight up, is not as good as faction equipment. It's not like, Fallout or something where you can find all kinds of weird kooky stuff and, you don't have to join the Brotherhood of Steel. You don't have to join whoever to get power armor. You can rock your own homegrown arsenal. This is not like that. Basically, what I'm saying is you're gonna spend the first 15 to 20 hours tiptoeing around the world, talking to people, and doing fetch quests before you're even allowed to think about having some fun. It's rough. I'm just realizing now that I broke this video down into a couple subjects, like the story, the gameplay, and then I just kind of kept talking. Gonna emphasize the inaugural part of this inaugural episode of Eurojank Theatre. To sum up Elex, it is Eurojank through and through. It's got a good story, lots of quests, and tons of characters to burn hours and hours of your life on. There's a handful of fun partner characters that you can get as well, including 2 ladies that you can have sexy vagina time with. No boys though. Jax is aggressively heterosexual. Unlike our Lord and Savior, Commander Shepard. Jax is the incel version of Commander Shepard. That's mean, I shouldn't say that. The gameplay is hot, wet ass 90% of the time, and mildly satisfying 10% of the time. The open world is pretty and has stuff in it to do, but really and truly never blew me away or excited me. The jetpack gets a negative 87 out of 10. I hate it. The beginning of the game is an absolute death sentence for the average gamer. Do I recommend Elex? Well, the sequel is coming out soon, so you could just wait for that if you wanted. Really, I'd say this game is worth $15 to $20. Although, when it's not on sale, I'm pretty sure it's still like $50. Please do not spend $50 on this game, even if you really think you'll like it, because you might not. Oh, and make sure you have a lot of free time to play. If you're a busy boy or girl, and only have like a few hours here and there to play games, this is not for you. This is absolutely not for you. Thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate you checking out the new video formats, and you guys watching any of my videos really and truly means a lot. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/resetget. I stream every week with whatever game I'm making a video about. Make sure you check the description for all my socials, and make sure you stay tuned for the next video, which will feature yet another new format. Hope you're excited.